And so if we can come into the perception for a moment that everything is happening within this vehicle. So in Buddhism, you have the 3 layers of the vehicles, Hinayana, Mashayanna, Vajryana. These layers of the vehicle are layers of our body, our multidimensional body. So in the Kailonic system, we go into many layers of this, right? We go into these external physical body, we go into light body structure, Rasha body structure, spirit body structure, luminary body structure, plasma body structure. Each layer of these bodies is an aspect of the anatomy of God, which is what we are individual expressions of. So as angelic humans, we have access to remember or activate the remembrance of these layers of the body, which are vast structures, very large. If we look at just the basis of our body here in some of our auric fields, you can have an auric field that's 6 feet, 12 feet, 50 feet wide, But then you get into some of these bigger structures and you're looking at bodies that are as big as the planet, as big as the solar system, as big as the entire time matrix and beyond that. So these layers of our body, as we activate them, it's as if, if we just could perceive it like this. Okay, we're sitting in this room. Now, what if we have the perception that our anatomy is actually not just this body, it's the entire room. So we, as this body, this individualized body that's like separate from the walls, it's obviously like we're not interwoven with the walls, but if we just look at practically, this body is separate from the walls. But because the entirety of the room is actually our anatomy, then our body that's here is existing within ourselves. So we're existing within a greater version of ourselves, which is the room. So just like with our hands in this body, we can move and touch things. Well, say the room had a consciousness and the room could shift things and move things, like it could move the table around, or it could even move this body. I hope we're following here what I'm saying. So, okay, now we're this whole room. So everything that happens within this room is actually just the same as me moving my hand, because it's the same aspect. It's a part of the anatomy. So the ability to, let's say levitate or move an object or send a message telepathically to somebody else who's sitting in the room over there, which would be just another aspect of myself because they're in the room. So I'm the room. So anything in the room is also me. So me sending the message to the friend sitting over there, well, that's just happening within me already. Just like if I were to send a thought to my organ, right? To send some love, give some love to the organ, or to breathe through all the cells in the body. I'm consciously doing that because I can do that. I exist in this body. This whole body is me. So I have to take care of the entirety of me. So in the same way, when we're in the expanded version or the expanded perception of self, which is what it means to awaken, that's what it means for ascension or ascension, is we are ascending, we are expanding the perception into a greater viewpoint of self. So now, what if now we go beyond just the room? Now we're the entire house. So everything that happens within the house, just like everything, all the organs, all the things that happens in this body is me. And it's up to me, ultimately, to be the custodian, the guardian. It's not like I'm controlling all the things all the time. That's not necessary. I'm just making sure everything is in harmony so that it can work properly. So when we expand the perception to the whole house, now all the beings in the house, everything that happens in the house is happening within me. So this is the perception that we can carry when we are coming to an expansion of the awareness of all the layers of the anatomy. Today we're going straight for gold. We're going beyond all the layers and we're saying, what is the actual original light spark? What is the original absolute reality? Right? To see and investigate any perceptual layer and go beyond it, 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 to see what is the essential nature, what is the original source. Because if we know the original source, then just like now, we go straight to the viewpoint of the whole house instead of each room and all that, even though we still have to go through each room because you would clean up each room and all that. But if you're the perception of the whole house, then you can take care of that all simultaneously. This is what it means to walk the direct path, right? To not get caught up in all the shiny objects in the spiritual world. So to investigate the source, we come to know the source. It doesn't mean that just because we're the whole house, that rooms in the house don't exist. They're illusionary. No, they're illusionary to say that the one room is the full house. Like to say just this room is the full house. Well, that's not true. The full house is the full house. So this is what it means to understand the paradox between seeing all as illusionary, but yet loving all and appreciating all and bringing attention to all, because it's both equally true. So to come to know the absolute emptiness of, the absolute source, we come to know then all of creation, and this is the vastness of infinity, of eternity. There's no way of possibly conceiving how vast, this is. Like even just comprehending for a moment that our body is actually millions and millions and millions of kilometers wide. Like if we could come to grasp that for a moment, right? It's not even, the mind is usually not ready for that. So that's not really of our concern. We're not concerned with needing to grasp that. What we are, I guess, not concerned about, but focused on, is focusing on how can we get out of the way, essentially, so that these layers of self can be progressively uncovered and brought into realization. That's self-realization, self-actualization. We're actualizing the nature of who we actually are, which is the vastness of all. So this example I've given of the house, I mean, there's no limit. It's like the Russian eggs, egg, 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 So when we come to actually study this, through Kailanic wisdom or various yogic or, Buddhist lineages, where we're coming to know the layers of the light body, the layers of the structure, the anatomy, not necessarily always in exact detail in all the ways that we think we need to understand things, but in a way where we actually viscerally feel these aspects of self as ourselves. Because believe me, it actually makes everything so much easier. Everything is so much easier because everything comes to you then, right? You become the master that all things naturally magnetize to, because if you are all of creation, being able to send a telepathic thought to somebody to bring you a glass of water, or to, have a conversation, or just telling them something that you love them or something like this, or being able to move about your reality no matter where you go within the physical realm, and not have all the things that we see that are happening within the world, that in truth, for most of us, I feel, living this, it's like, it's really only when we go on social media that a lot of those things exist, right? These like dark topics or the world agendas and this and that. I mean, yeah, they're all things that are happening within the world and within the collective radial body. So yeah, sure, there's an element to the truth of that. But within our own bubble, these things are just not really apparent. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm giving a nice assumption that the majority of us here are experiencing similar, right? And then if we're not, really investigating, are these things truly in the immediate reality, or are they just being conjured up by the mind? Or every time we go on social media, we think these things are happening, because it's like, well, yeah, they're happening, but where are they? You know what I mean? Like, I don't see any, I don't see a lot of this stuff happening in my own reality. It's really just a lot of concepts, right? So within each individual reality, it's going to be different. But so I can speak only to my own. But what I speak to is a principle that we all each can apply. Because again, if we're the whole room, if we're all the whole house, if we're the whole block, if we're the whole city, wherever we go, there we are. Wherever we go, that bubble's moving with us. So wherever we go, the influence of the organic structure of what we are is influencing everything within our reality. So whatever appears within that bubble is going to appear in alignment with that frequency, with alignment with that organic structure. So it's not necessarily that all of a sudden it's just, butterflies and rainbows, everything, everywhere. It's just that it's perceived in that way. Just like in the examples of, like miracle healing, for instance. I often reference like a Jesus story or something, healing the leper, Jesus healing a leper or something like this. Whether it's true or not or whatever, it doesn't matter. The principles remain the same. The being that is able to elicit the transmission of the healing is perceiving not leprosy, but God, perfection. They're not perceiving leprosy in a sick, old, frail, poor-looking human. On the relative level, sure, like we call the spade a spade, but the essence of what is felt is the perfection. So the magnetism works in a very simple way. The stronger magnet always will supersede the weaker magnet. So in a being who has not been able to see themselves in the same light, and thus is experiencing this disease or fear or leprosy in this case, the only thing that's actually required is the acceptance of seeing this perfection as this other being is, to be seen in the image of God source, which is essentially the nature of what it means to devote yourself to a teaching, to a teacher, to an energy, to a transmission, is the acceptance and willingness to see oneself as that. And that's where the stronger magnet, in this case, Jesus or whatever, and the weaker magnet, or the perceived weaker magnet, in this case, this person with leprosy, the stronger magnet essentially transmits that same frequency and then elevates this other being, which is what dissipates leprosy, because leprosy never really existed. It was only existing based on the crystallization, right? The density of the thought forms of that being that were literally holding that leprosy in place. Disease is only held by crystallization of thought forms. So it's holding that leprosy in place. When the frequency of another being comes in contact with that, and the being no longer wants to hold that frequency in place, then naturally it's like, that's what a miracle healing is. It can happen in an instant, right? And we likely have experienced it in these meditations in similar fashion, in small ways. We could have a shitty week, and all of a sudden all of a sudden it's gone. It's like washed away, like dirt on a windshield, like gone. Right. So when we come to know ourselves as this vast structure, which is essentially eternal, but we go through stages of that knowing and that remembrance, then the frequency range that we carry and the strength of that frequency range brings a stronger impact around amongst all those who are around us. So that doesn't even need to be looking like anything in particular. You could just sit around, and that effect is occurring. It's healing everything around you. It's like a magnet, just healing everything constantly. You don't have to do anything. You're just holding grid. And so when it's consciously directed in particular ways, then that can be more potent. But often we don't even really need to be constantly directing, because everything's going to come to us anyway. So that's why naturally we become more silent in this space, right? More silent, more receptive, right? Because you're a magnet.